Welcome everyone to the 2021 Formula SAE Cost Event Overview. I am Matthew Meyer, your moderator for the next hour. Just a little background about me. I'm an SAE member from the Detroit area section, and I graduated from Lawrence Tech with a BSME degree. I was in their Formula SAE program from 2007 to 2011, and I now work at General Motors as a propulsion application engineer. Before we get started, let's move to slide 2. I quickly wanted to review some of the upcoming SAE events. The SAE Detroit section has many virtual events, as you can see listed here. Please go to www.sae-detroit.org to find out more details of these great events. Moving on, let's do just a quick review of a few of the rules for the Zoom presentation. A recording of our discussion of this meeting will be shared via the SAE Detroit section YouTube channel at a later date. Aside from today's presenters, all of the attendees have been muted to avoid any distractions. We do truly want you to participate. We've turned on the chat functionality. So please feel free to share your questions with us. You can actually start right now if you already have questions. As the presentation goes on, I will be constantly scanning for the questions, and I will take them and ask the presenters at the correct time. Your speakers today are Richard Lepage, who works for Ford Motor Company as a high voltage connector design and release engineer, and is also one of your cost event judges for the Formula SAE Michigan competition. And Kaylee Zundel is a education program manager at SAE International. Richard, would you like a few seconds to tell us about yourself?
Yeah, let me share my video so you have me. There we go. All right. So again, my name is Richard Lepage. I'm a Ford electrification powertrain engineer at in the design and release group. I work on high voltage connectors on new electric vehicles such as the Mach-E and all the new hybrids that you see coming out. So that's a little bit of what I do on the professional side. And I'll be presenting the cost report today. A little bit about myself on the SAE side. I did graduate from Wayne State University with my master's. I was at Wayne State for 8 years, and all 8 years I was on the Formula team in multiple roles. 2 years as a chassis director, 2 years I actually judged during my master's. I was a judge at competition during my later years, and then in my early years I took place in the cost event. During my time on the cost team, we did very well and improved very many things about how we did our cost report, refined our skills, and we were able to win a few Formula cost events, gain first place and second place in a few of the competitions you see there. So hopefully with this presentation, you guys will be able to take this information home and start working on your cost presentation, and you too could possibly win the cost event.
Awesome. Thanks for that background, Richard.
Yep.
How about we get started with the overview? Can you start us off?
Yep. So a quick introduction and objectives that you'll be looking at for cost. So again, cost is 100 points out of the 1,000 points that are typically available in the cost event. So it's 10% of your score. That has not changed. Cost and budget are significant in engineering. When you get into your professional roles, this will be one of the main things that you have to focus on when delivering products to your supervisors. So we want you to be able to look at making trade-off decisions between the content and the cost of those items by doing an engineering analysis of what really works. Hopefully this will give you experience with creating and maintaining a bill of materials. Having a BOM available is very helpful, not only for the engineering side of building your vehicle, but also the cost side makes it much easier to do your cost report. You need to be able to learn and understand the principles of design and, for manufacturing and assembly. You can design the most efficient, cool looking component, but if it cannot be machined, cast, injection molded, it just can't get made, and or it could get made, but just will be so expensive it's not worth it. So that's sort of the goal with that. there are three main parts to the cost event that you need to look at. Is the report, which you'll submit, the event day discussion, and then the cost scenario. And when I say cost scenario, I'm referencing the real case scenario. So for 2021, obviously we're in a new environment where this is a virtual event for the static event. So there have been some changes to the cost event for 2021, which we're going to review today in this presentation. The first and major part is your cost report that you submit only require frame and body and suspension. Typically in the past, you had a cost report that covered your entire vehicle, down to wheels and tires, to the frame, to the electrical system, to ergonomics. All those systems had to be included. For this year, you only need frame, body, and suspension subsystems. You can look on the rules and see what are required for those specific subsystems, but that's all you need. Now, teams that did compete last year are encouraged to submit their entire report that they did have from last year if you're using the same vehicle. Many of you teams will still be using the same vehicle, so it's beneficial to you just to submit the same report. Second, cost judging and cost audit will be combined. Cost audit was previously designed to be a more meticulous report judging phase, basically to go through your report with a bigger fine-tooth comb. Now with this introduction of online reports, it's easier for us as judges to review your cost report. So it's not necessarily needed anymore. So cost judging and cost audit is combined. Now for the points balance, there has been some updates there. Out of the 100 points that you get for costs, 30 points are for the vehicle cost, 15 points are for cost accuracy, 15 points are for engineering drawings. And this is important because obviously we can't see your car. We need drawings and images to be able to see it through the computer. So that's how that point is added. And then finally, 40 points are for the real case scenario. So this is going to be a big part of your competition, and we'll discuss that a little further. As I mentioned, real case, it's 40 points, and it is a new format. A more in-depth real case scenario is now posted. I'm sure many of you have looked at it already on fseonline.com. If not, you should. And it will be the main part of your event day discussions. So going over a few things. So rules, know your deadlines. Submitting things late, you're going to lose points and it's not worth it. You don't want to lose those points. You want to look, as I mentioned, at all the assemblies, parts, fasteners, and the standard numbering that must be included in each of your subsystems, as well as the BOM. Again, refer to the fseonline.com cost supplemental data and cost rules to help you understand all those requirements. Look at make versus buy. Making a component versus buying a component is different on the cost report. There are opportunities where you could buy a component and it's cheaper to buy it than it is to make it. So look at that when you're building your vehicle. Again, read the rules and the cost documents. There's a lot of changes this year, and you as cost captains or cost team members, you need to understand all these rules going into the cost. Deadlines. There are no excuses for late submissions. 1 day late can be the difference between first place and 10th place in competition. Each day late is a 10-point penalty. As I mentioned, the main deadline is Monday, March 29th, pretty much at midnight Eastern Standard Time. Don't wait till the last minute. Try to get submitted, a couple days beforehand. You never know if you have computer issues, internet issues, your computer crashes, whatever. The website crashes. These are things that you can't plan for, so we want you to be able to submit stuff on time. And along with that, start your report now. If you have not already started your cost report, get it started today. With the online system, it's very easy to copy over items from your previous years into the new year and be able to tweak it, modify it, and update it for that event. Now, the actual cost report. Who's in charge of your cost report? Do you have a cost report captain? Do you have team members? have you sat down with the subsystem captains to fill out their sections? The cost report captain shouldn't be filling out the entire cost report. He should be able to sit down with, the frame captain, the suspension captain, and be able to work with them to fill this out. It's a team effort. What is the best way to manufacture something? Is it plasma cutting or is it water cutting? There is a big cost difference there. Tapping holes by hand versus threading them on the machine. How are you manufacturing your car? These are things that you guys need to consider when you're looking at the cost report processes and materials and cost multipliers. These are things that you should really look at when you're deciding on how you're going to manufacture your vehicle. Especially for this year, I want to focus on is include pictures of your processes, manufacturing, assembling of your vehicle, just pictures of individual components. Make sure you have a lot of photos and drawings available for this report. That's a huge part being online this year. You need to have that. Now, to note, only PDF and JPEG file types will export to your report correctly. So make sure that you use the correct file formats and make sure you guys look at your report when you're done exporting it. There's always issues sometimes where something gets exported incorrectly or it looks wrong. You want to check that before you actually submit the file. And then finally, again, read the cost supplement documents. That's the part I have to stress the most. Common mistakes that teams make when they're filling out the cost report. Forgetting the reaction tool. When you're cranking down a bolt and it has a nut on the backside, you have to have a wrench on that nut to make sure it doesn't spin. A lot of teams forget this. This is stuff that we look for and stuff that you should make sure that you have documented in your cost report as a reaction tool. Process multipliers. Are you machining stainless steel or are you machining plastic? You actually have to multiply the process of machining by a certain number depending on that material. If you miss that, for example, stainless steel, you have to multiply by 3.75. If you miss that, that's a lot of cost that you're missing that we have to dock you for. Finishes and paints. This is an interesting one. If any paint is only used for the beautification of your vehicle, you want to make it look pretty, etc., you don't have to cost it. Now, if any finishes or paints are put on the vehicle to prevent rust, tarnish, whatever, it has to be costed then. So make sure you understand that when you're going through the finishes of your vehicle. Welding and welding fixtures. This is a big one that we always look for. And you will look at this for your frame. Each point that is a node on your frame, and a node is considered where any tubes meet, is considered a fixture point. When you weld your frame, and I know this from my experience, you may not hold your frame at every single node. You might only hold it in 16 or 24 spots or 20 spots, something like that. But the way we cost welding fixtures, it's by every node for wherever tubes attach or wherever brackets attach. Those have to be costed in your welding fixture on your frame. It's on A-arms too. Anything that's really welded that has fixturing, you need to look at that. That's something that we look for, and we want you to make sure you get correct. The event day discussion. Now, this is when you guys are going to come in. Be prepared to know what's going to happen on the event day. That's what you're here for this presentation, and again, reading the cost rules. The process, once you arrive at the cost judge will provide you with a quick assessment of what your cost accuracy and your scores are, which documents areas of your report where we think you might be missing something or we dock points for something. New this year is typically we discuss the cost report on event day. For this year, we are not. What we're going to focus on is a real case, but for this point is if you guys feel that you are missing or scored incorrectly, you were docked points for something that you know was there, you can request a review at another time, and we'll work on scheduling that with you and reviewing the concerns that you as a team have. If you follow the rules and you've documented everything on where they should be in the cost report, in theory, you should have not received any doc points. So, make sure you read the rules, make sure you look at the cost supplements, make sure you have that stuff, known pretty well when going to your cost report. Now, real case scenario. This is, again, going to be the main point and the main discussion topic of your event day discussion. Real case is worth double the points this year. It used to be 20 points, it's 40 points now. So this is going to be where the real points matter. Real case is posted before competition with details on what is being requested of you for answering. It is posted now. It's available for you all to read. I would suggest reading that if you have not already, and start working on it now. As I mentioned, because this is the majority of your discussion on event day, this is what we're going to focus on. This is what you should focus on besides your report to be able to present that day. Go above and beyond than just discussing with our judges. Typically, some teams just discuss in previous years at competition. I've seen teams that'll just, talk about it with the judge, suggest some ideas. Go above and beyond. With discussion being online, your real case report, we're asking you to provide it in advance to us in either a PowerPoint or PDF format. Your presentation that you have, it should be limited to 10 slides with at least one slide per category. Again, these details are in the cost supplement data that is posted on FSAE Online, so please read that. Be prepared to discuss your decisions and any disadvantages to those decisions. You will have, typically it'll be a 30-minute 20 to 30-minute meeting. There'll be some time for introductions and some time at the end for us to review, but there'll be a fixed 10 minutes to present and up to 10 minutes for Q&A. Q&A would be any questions that we have for you in regards to your presentation that we want some clarification on. Review the real case judging score sheet, as it will give you pretty much what exactly we're looking for when we're judging you on event day. This is posted online and it does have much more details than I have listed here, but the 5 main groups that we're looking at are financial, manufacturing, staffing, marketing, and data analysis. These 5 main groups you should be able to present on and answer the questions on how you're solving your real case scenario. If you guys take the time and answer these 5 questions or these 5 areas and you try to answer them to the best of your ability, you should do relatively well in the real case event. So in conclusion, today we covered the objectives of costs, the changes to the 2021 event, the rules, deadlines, the report, common mistakes teams make, the event day discussion, and the real case scenario, which is much larger this year. At this point now, we'll open it up to questions from any of you team members that will have in regards to this or any other cost related questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. I've got a few questions for you. I'll start from the top. What is the event day discussion? Is that during the validation event?
Yeah. So the event day discussion, typically in previous years, you would bring your car into the cost bay. You would discuss your actual cost report that we have that we've presented to you, and then we go into the real case at the end. This year, it's a 30-minute discussion, and it is sort of combined. The actual report section is very limited, as I said here. The judge will provide you with your initial assessment of your cost accuracy, which you do have an opportunity to request a review at a later time. But then we'll focus on the real case during the event day discussion. And this is that time that the FSAE organization has scheduled for you. I believe the schedule is posted online now. So you should be able to look at what time your event day discussion is. It's similar to how the presentation event went, where you have a time, you call into the Zoom meeting and you'll discuss your real case and answer those questions that we have for you.
Okay, thank you. My next question is the March 29th deadline for the cost report just for, they say FSAE Detroit, but I'm assuming it's FSAE Michigan or other US competitions?
This deadline is for, I believe it's both, and Kaylee, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it is for both FC Michigan and FSC California. I believe it's combined for the deadline. And this is the date that you need to submit your cost report to the team. And this is that report that includes your frame, suspension, and body.
Okay, I'm going to move on to the next question. Richard, you said in the real case scenario can be submitted as a PowerPoint or a PDF, but the cost event description says submit a PowerPoint as a PDF. Which is the correct submission process?
That's a good question. Kaylee, do you happen to know if both PowerPoint or PDF will be accepted, or if we're asking for a PowerPoint in a PDF format?
Yeah, sorry, I have a little bit of technical difficulty. I'll answer this, but I also wanted to just touch base on one of the other questions. We are asking you to create a PowerPoint template because that is what you will use on the day of judging. But for the ease of submitting to the website and for volunteers to download and view, we're asking you to submit as a PDF, the presentation template. Real quick, just to touch base on the deadlines. So the knowledge event is the knowledge event. There's not a East, West, Michigan, California. It's just knowledge event. So just wanted to make that clear for the teams as well. And the static schedule is actually not up yet. Our goal for that will be March 1st. So yeah, the week of March 1st, I should say. But yeah, so that's all I want to add.
Thank you, Kaylee. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
I have got one more question. So please, participants, if you have more questions, please go ahead and ask them now. Some of the feedback we got during our presentation event was that the judges would like to see more than one presenter. Would the cost judges also like to see more than one presenter?
Yeah, so this is a good question. So typically for cost, you know, for presentation, there's very specific rules on presenters and who could speak and how that works. For cost, it's a little less orchestrated in regards to how you have to introduce yourselves. So if you guys want 2 or 3 people there to present, possibly let's say you have a engineering specialist there with you and a cost specialist there with you, or however you want to do it, we're pretty much open to how you'd like to present to us. We don't have any specific strict rules on that. Again, we are limiting you to the 10 slides, so be prepared to who is presenting what on which slides. And then at the Q&A section, you could have multiple people answering questions if that's how you would like to handle the cost event and how you'd like to handle your presentation.
Okay. My next question for you is, since the time is shared between the real case scenario and a review of penalties for the cost report, is there a defined time limit for the real case scenario, or what is planned?
Yes. So as I mentioned, there's a 10-minute presentation window to present 10 slides to us. So it's a minute per slide that you have to present to us. And there is up to 10 minutes for Q&A at the end. There is obviously 30 minutes in total for your presentation window. So there's additional 10 minutes. There can be 5 minutes for introductions and that handoff of your scores for the actual cost report. As I mentioned, if your team sees that you got docked some points in a certain subsystem that you felt was incorrect, just due to the limitations on how much time we have and how many judges we have available, we're not able to review all the penalties the day of. So we're asking that teams at that time make a request, and we can note it down that you'd like to review the doc points, and then at a later time we can review that with you either through a separate Zoom meeting or some separate discussion.
And I think just to add to that, your statement earlier in your presentation about the drawings and the photos, this is where that information is going to be key, because the judges won't have the physical car to review on site to work with the teams on any of those point challenges, right? So it'll be a lot based on what they submit.
Okay. Just a reminder, everybody, I'm getting a couple questions. This presentation will be posted on YouTube in the near future. My next question or clarification that a participant would like is, when filling out the cost report online, we don't update, fill out any of the other sections, just the suspension, frame, and body, correct? Or do we have to fill out the whole thing anyways, since the other sections are already there?
So for this year, the only sections that we are judging are frame, body, and suspension. If your team has competed in the previous year and you have a full report, you are encouraged to submit the whole thing. But for the actual point judging, it will only be frame, body, and suspension subsystems. Those are be the areas that we focus on when looking at your cost accuracy, engineering drawings, and your vehicle cost points. If you don't want to submit the rest of the report, you're not obligated to, but we are encouraging you, if you have it, to submit it.
Okay. Does the event day discussion consist of a very brief feedback on the cost report from the judges, then the students go to the real case presentation?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, the majority of the discussion is on the real case scenario. We will give you your points back for what we've judged you on. It might be a few moments just to say this is what we scored you on, and we found some issues in these two sections, but it won't be a very long discussion, not typically from how we've previously done that. And again, the reason we did that this year is just because of the limitation on the amount of judges we have and the amount of time we have with the Zoom meetings and in between Zoom meetings as well. Yep.
Okay. I only have one more question left, so please, if you do have any other questions, please type them in the chat window. Is it okay for us to have someone attend the cost report review, but that will not be a presenter for the real case scenario?
Yeah, I would say that would probably be fine. I know a lot of teams, they try to, and this is something that we did at Wayne State University, is when we went up to the cost bay to do our cost report, we would always try to bring in team members to watch, who are freshmen or sophomores and are eventually going to start taking over as not judges, but cost team captains or cost leads. So it's always good to bring in other students so they can learn how the process will work, especially with how the new cost reports process is set up, being the online cost report and then the event day discussion being real case scenario focused. It'd always be great to bring in people to discuss. The only thing I would most likely suggest is if they are on there and they're not presenting, maybe possibly introduce that you do have some team members just viewing and make sure they're on mute so there's no interruptions during your presentation.
In the cost report, should the other non-required systems be listed but blank or not included at all?
So if you were generating, let's say a new report for this year's car, it's your first car, we would only ask that the frame body and suspension subsystems be on the list. So typically when you open up the online cost report, you have a list on the first, sort of like the top menu, you see, 2021 car number, yada, yada. And then you open that and it goes down to each subsystem. When you open that up and you see the different subsystems, you should only have the frame body and suspension subsystems there. There's no need to, there's no requirement for you to create blank folders that say, ergonomics, and you open that up and there's nothing in there. And that's, again, because we're only, due to the limited judging, we're focusing on the frame body and suspension subsystems this year. And again, as I mentioned, if you're copying over your report, your car might be the same as last year. It might be the exact same car. Obviously, you guys completed your cost report last year. So there's no reason to go through and start deleting a bunch of files and items just to submit it as for the frame body and suspension only. So if they're in there already, and we don't want you wasting, a half hour of your time going through and deleting stuff. So you can submit the entire report as there. But just to be clear, we are only judging on the frame body and suspension. Items in other sections of your cost report will not be judged.
Are the presenters of the real case scenario the only ones allowed to answer questions about the real case scenario during the Q&A section of judging?
So that is a good question. Again, and that's something I think you guys are sort of relaying to the presentation event, being where you have to introduce everyone who is speaking or will speak. Again, for costs, we don't require introductions on who can speak and not speak, because we're not as formal as the presentation event. At your introduction point, you could introduce someone saying, this is our, if you want to, you could say, Mike and Mary are our presenters, and Todd is our engineering expert who'll be available for questions at the end. So you could present it like that. Again, cost, if you guys have looked at the real case scenario, it's a discussion on the stock market, and you guys have an IPO for your company. So it is a little bit of a business presentation, but the rules don't specifically require you to introduce yourselves. It's up to you as team members to make that decision on how you would like to present and how you would like to introduce people.
Okay, thank you. Richard, I don't have any more questions. Could you quickly go to the slide that shows your email address?
Yep.
Oh, here we go. Now I just got a question. In the same vein, are the presenters of the real case scenario the only people that can interact with the judges about the cost report review?
So again, another good question on that. No, we don't really require, again, we don't really require introductions for everyone that's speaking. So if you guys, get to the Q&A section, and let's say you have another team member on mute that has an answer for you, you could say, you could then say something like, our colleague Kevin can answer that question to a better ability than I can, and then you can hand it off to Kevin to answer those questions. So again, being a new format for real case, we're not as formal as presentation or anything like that. So there will be a little bit of a learning curve for both the judges and for you as students here. But you guys can, again, handle it how you feel it would be best handled in your own opinion. We don't really, again, we're not going to cut someone off because they weren't introduced at the beginning. We're not going to be strict like that. We'll just, again, we're looking for the information you're presenting. That's what we're focusing on during cost. Again, did you did you cover these 5 topics? Do you have the data? Have you considered everything? And you can, if you look at the old rules for cost event, we don't require you guys to show up in suits or anything like that to the cost event day discussion. We're focused on the data and the math and the science behind it and the engineering. That's what we care about. And that's what you guys as team members should care about too, is the actual numbers.
Okay. When will the validation event be confirmed or not?
Kaylee, I'll have to hand that to you.
Yeah, so I'll answer this question, but this seminar is specifically on the cost event. So I'd like to keep the validation inquiries at minimum, if not 0. But we do have a plan out there. The validation plan is out there. We are still continuing to work on hosting the event, and we have a timeline in that validation plan that spells out 60 days out is your commitment to make payment and confirm for us you're interested moving forward. 45 days out, we will have our plan of operations outlined for you and published. And then 30 days out will be our official go, no-go date. Obviously with the caveat that even after that announcement, if we are a go, I can't control what's happening in the world. So if things with the whole pandemic go worse, the event will obviously get canceled at that point still. So it's a forever revolving door that we just have to kind of go with the flow.
Okay. Could you expand on what qualities judges will look for in determining the vehicle cost and engineering drawing scores?
Yeah, so let me go back to the score sheet here. So for vehicle cost, we're looking for basically let's give an example of an upright that's machined out of aluminum. There's obviously vehicle cost and then cost accuracy. The difference there is, do you have the actual costs documented there, and then how accurate are those costs? So if you're missing, let's say your machining setup, change and tear down, if you're missing that affects your cost accuracy, because that's details in there. The vehicle cost, and that goes back to the formula of the cheapest car and the most expensive car. So typically a competitive car in competitions $10,000 to $12,000 total. Obviously now that we're only costing frame, body, and suspension, it's going to be a little different. Those cost numbers obviously won't be as high, but those systems will encompass a total cost, and that total cost, whoever's the cheapest wins the vehicle cost. It gets a complete 30 points for that. Cost accuracy, again, that's how accurate your actual cost report is. So are you missing setups? Are you missing the correct numbers? Let's say there's 5 bolts on your upright and you only costed 1 of them, or the reaction tools for that, you're missing those. Those are things that we look at for cost accuracy. Now, engineering drawings, obviously we're not going to judge you on did you follow the proper dimensional rules and GD&T. We're not looking at that for drawings or anything like that. We're looking to see is, do you have a sufficient number of drawings and photos available to the cost judges to be able to accurately judge your components? What I would suggest, if I was doing this cost report, is if it's a decently made component, I would make sure that you have either a drawing or photo, or even in my case, I would have a drawing and photo available for each component that you make. Obviously, it's something as small as like a nut or a bolt. You probably don't need photos and drawings of nuts and bolts. If you want to be that detailed, go right ahead. I'll be interested in seeing that if anyone does that, but we're not looking for anything down to into the nuts and bolts. But for components that you make or that are decently mid to major components going in your vehicle, we want to be able to see those to be able to accurately judge them. Because you can give us an upright numbers, you say, you know, there was 5 kilograms of raw aluminum, we machined away 400 cubic centimeters. You know, you can give us these numbers, but unless we're able to see it, we won't be able to accurately judge it. So a drawing with you know, basic XYZ dimensions like width, length, height of the component would be good. If you want to get more detailed in your drawings, maybe you have your manufacturing drawings that you just attach, those are fine as well. But again, the point of the engineering drawings is so we can be able to see your vehicle without actually seeing your vehicle. And then obviously the 40 points are for the real case, and that's assigned based on how well you do in that presentation and the data you present there.
Is there a specific format you would like the teams to use for technical drawings, or is it up to the team's discretion?
Yeah, so I touched on that a little bit, but again, we're not looking for specific GD&T requirements. Whatever format that you guys feel is efficient or working well for your team, we'll accept. Try to keep a little consistency there. So if you're making a certain drawing, sort of try to keep the similar format going through your report, just so that when we're judging it, we're able to quickly go through it and see if you're changing up how you do your drawings on every component. It might get a little confusing for us if we miss something. So consistency would be my suggestion for engineering drawings that you do. But again, we're not looking for every single dimension and every single angle on that. If you give us a drawing with enough basic dimensions to give us an idea on the size of it and be able to say, yeah, if you machined 400 cubic centimeters, that makes sense to us. Those are the type of questions that we're looking to answer is when we see these dimensions and the size of your components.
Should engineering drawings be presented about non-frame body suspension components?
No. So again, your cross board is only requiring frame, body, and suspension. So those are the only subsystems that you are required to add drawings and your cross points for. If you have a cross support that already has drawings and photos from other subsystems from your previous report and you want to still submit those, go right ahead. But again, we're not going to be judging those other subsystems just due to the time constraints and the amount of judges that we currently have.
Okay. How much freedom is there in defining the details of the company in real case? Some details are included in the prompt, but there's a lot not included. How much can we make up essentially?
Yeah, so for the real case scenario this year is obviously you guys have an IPO and it blows up and now you have a lot of orders and we're asking you to answer those questions on the basically what's going to happen now. And this is similar to how presentation works. Obviously, you guys don't have a huge manufacturing facility and thousands of orders, so it's very up in the air on how you want to answer it. So if you want to say we have, let's go over to the items that we include: the financial, manufacturing, staffing, marketing, and data analysis. You could say you have 100-person staff that works on it. You have 20 in engineering, 50 in manufacturing. You can go into all those details and you can get it as detailed as you want. The only thing I would again suggest is you have 10 minutes to present over 10 slides. So you can include a lot of information in there, but again, you want to be able to convey the information that you feel is most important in that 10 minutes. Again, look at the real case judging score sheet. Under each of these 5 items, there's about 3, 4, or 5 bullet points on sort of the information we're looking for in each of those. You want to be able to answer those questions. So if you have 3 or 4 bullet points under each one of these, you have 15 to 20 questions that you need to answer during that 10-minute discussion. So we just want you to be able to focus on what you think will answer all those questions and check all those boxes that will give you the most points in the real case scenario. So you can go as detailed as you want, as long as you're able to convey everything you need to convey to us in the 10-minute timeline.
All right, are there any more questions? If so, please enter them in the chat window. I'll give just a few more seconds. All right, I don't see any coming in.
So again, guys, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to email me. You can write down my work email here. I am available through that email at any time. So if you guys have any questions, do let us know. Or if you let the SAE Detroit section know any questions, I'm sure they can forward those on to the correct individuals as well.
And just a reminder, you can find this presentation. It's being recorded. It'll be at the SAE Detroit section YouTube channel. If you just go on Google or on YouTube, I'm sure you can find it. Oh, I got one last question. Does aero fall under the body?
That's a good question. I have not looked at the specific subsystem rules yet for this year, so I'm not sure if those changed. If you do look at the cost supplemental data, there is a list on what components go into what subsystem. So I would refer to the rules to verify what subsystem goes in which component. I believe aero does fall in under frame and body, but I would, again, please check the rules that are listed on fceonline.com, as those are the official rules, and that's what we'll be looking for in those sections.
Thanks, Richard. All right. Thank you to our participants for joining our cost event overview. A special thank you to our speakers today and the SAE Detroit section staff and Alba Cologne for your involvement in putting together today's presentation. Have a great day, everyone.